This video is on enlargements, which naturally implies making things bigger, but in actual fact in mathematics, an enlargement can make things bigger, but it can also make things smaller. We're going to start by enlarging triangle P by a scale factor of 3. And what that scale factor of 3 means is the lengths of triangle P are all going to be multiplied by 3. The centre of enlargement, we're told, is 0, 0. And the yellow box makes it quite clear that all we need to do is multiply the coordinates of P by the scale factor 3. So, those are the coordinates of P. We multiply each of them in turn by the scale factor. So when we multiply A, the coordinate 1, 2, by the scale factor of 3, we end up with 3, 6. And that will be the point A dash. A dash is a corresponding point on the enlargement to point A. And by the way, we call that enlargement the image. And the original shape, in this case triangle P, that's called the object. So now we plot 3, 6, which is the coordinate of A dash, and then we repeat that for point B. Multiply point B by 3, and we end up with 3, 12, which are the coordinates of B dash on the image. And finally, multiply the coordinates of point C by 3, that gives us 15, 6, which is C dash on the image. And because P was the letter we chose for the object, P dash is the letter we'll use for the image. We can check this using guidelines. If we draw lines from the centre of enlargement through the object point, it should pass through the image point. And there we go. So if we look at this being the centre of enlargement here, the origin, if we join the origin to point A and keep going, we find it passes through A dash. From the centre of enlargement through point B, if we keep going, the line will pass through B dash. And similarly, from the centre of enlargement to point C, if we keep going, it passes through C dash. Here's our second example. The scale factor is 2, which means the lengths of object P will all be multiplied by 2. As the centre of enlargement is the origin, 0, 0, we multiply the coordinates of P by the scale factor 2. So A, when we multiply those coordinates by 2, we end up at A dash, which is the point 6, 6. When we multiply the coordinates of B by 2, we'll end up at B dash, which will be the point 6, 10. And similarly for C, and then for D, and we join up those 4 points. And note we label the corresponding points, so A dash here corresponds to A on the original object. And we use P dash to label the image because we used P for the original object. We check using guidelines, which are drawn from the centre of enlargement, the origin, through each of the 4 points of P, and if those lines are extended, they should also pass through each of the 4 points of P dash. And as we can see, they do. If the centre of enlargement is not the origin, we use vectors. In this example, we can see on the screen the centre of enlargement is the point 2, 3. Now, if you're not sure what a vector is, they're not difficult to understand, so you may well pick it up from this example. We're going to measure how to get from point O to point A. And on the diagram we see we go 2 to the right and 1 down. And therefore we represent that with a vector 2, negative 1, where the top number is the distance in the x direction, the bottom number the distance in the y direction. It's positive 2 because we moved 2 units to the right. Had we moved to the left, the top number would have been negative. And in the y direction, as you might expect, upwards would be positive and downwards would be negative, and we've moved down 1 unit, so it's negative 1. Similarly, to get from O to B, we can see on the screen it's 4 to the right and 3 up. Therefore, the vector is positive 4, positive 3. Remember, x direction on top, y direction underneath. And then to get from O to C, we can see it's 6 units to the right and 1 unit up. The vector will be 6, 1. Now, multiply these vectors by the scale factor. So to get from O to A dash, we take the original vector O to A and multiply it by 2, and that gives us 4, negative 2. So now, measuring from the centre of enlargement, 4 to the right and 2 down will give us the point A dash. In order to find B dash and the vector OB dash, we take the original vector from O to B, which is 4, 3. We multiply it by 2, we end up with 8, 6. So once again, measuring from the centre of enlargement, 8 to the right and 6 up will give us the point B dash. And to find C dash, we need the vector O to C dash, i.e. from point O to C dash. We take the original vector O to C, multiply by 2 the scale factor, and that gives us 12, 2. So measured from the centre of enlargement, 12 to the right, 2 upwards, gives us the point C dash. Now once again, we can check using guidelines. From the centre of enlargement to one of the object points, keeping going, we end up passing through the image point. From the centre of enlargement to an object point, if we keep going, we pass through the corresponding image point. In this example, we can see that the scale factor is a half, which means we will be multiplying each length of the triangle by a half. Now, multiplying by a half will make things smaller, so our image will be smaller than the original object, but we would still call that an enlargement. We proceed in exactly the same way as before. We find the vector from the centre of enlargement to each of the points. From O to A, the vector is 6, negative 8. To get from O to B, it's 10, 0. 10 to the right and no distance up or down in the y direction. And finally, to get from O to C, 12 to the right and 8 down gives us a vector of 12, negative 8. We multiply each of those vectors by the scale factor, which in this case is a half. OA dash is the original vector OA times by a half, which is 3, negative 4. So from the centre of enlargement, 3, negative 4 is 3 to the right and 4 down, and that will be our point A dash. To find B dash, we multiply the original vector OB by a half, giving us a vector of 5, 0. Once again, from the centre of enlargement 5, 0 is simply 5 to the right, and that is our point B dash. And our third point, C dash, is found by taking the original vector O to C, multiplying by a half, giving us a vector of 6, negative 4. From the centre of enlargement, 6 to the right and 4 down will give us our point C dash. We join up our coordinates, label it P dash, and that is our enlargement, albeit we've made it smaller. Once again, we can check using guidelines, drawing lines from the centre of enlargement through each point, and those 3 lines, as we can see, pass through the pairs of corresponding points. From the centre of enlargement to A passes through the point A dash, from the centre of enlargement to B passes through the point B dash, from the centre of enlargement to C passes through the point C dash.